Are you eating healthy, taking probiotic supplements, but still struggling with stubborn bloating or even belly fat? I've been there, and that's why today I want to share with you 5 less known side effects of taking probiotic supplements and how they actually can make things worse for you. And just to be clear, I'm not against the probiotics, but gut health and healthy fat loss go way beyond healthy diet and probiotics. So hopefully after watching this video, you will not make the same mistakes as I did and will have better understanding of bloating and how gut health is linked with belly fat, and also what's the better approach to get that flat belly. So that was me in 2019, 2020. Frustrated with being bloated most of the day, and what worse, over time I start accumulating more and more belly fat. At that time I didn't understand why. The first thing I did was, of course, go to Google and ask what causes bloating and how to get rid of bloating. That time I was also already studying naturopathic nutrition, doing a lot of research and listening to lots of YouTubers, as you probably do. And what everyone was saying, if you have gut issues, gut problems, eat probiotic rich foods or take some probiotic supplements. And if the lack of good gut bacteria was the problem, probably it would help me. But what happened? I was actually more bloated, and not only after the food as it used to be, but also after workouts when I was not eating before or straight after, which was really weird. And that brings me to the first very common side effects of taking supplements when you basically don't need them. SIBO. Not sure if you ever heard about that term, but it's basically small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So what does it mean? In other words, that means you have gut bacteria, even the good one, basically in a wrong place, which is like your small intestine, while most of your gut bacteria should be in your large intestine or bowel. And apart from poor digestion or underactive thyroid, which is also a factor in my case, taking probiotic supplements when you don't really need them can lead to basically developing SIBO. And here is how SIBO impacts your health, hormones, belly fat, and of course bloating. So when you have too much of bacteria in a small intestine, that will inhibit nutrient absorption and also slow down your thyroid. If you have already underactive thyroid, it can make things worse, but also SIBO itself can lead to underactive thyroid. And when your thyroid is sluggish and your body is not absorbing nutrients well, that will lead to hormone imbalances, especially it will impact your estrogen and cortisol clearance. Estrogen and cortisol can directly contribute to bloating, especially when you don't eat any food. So that's what happened to me when I was working out. I was producing even more cortisol that my body was less efficient at metabolizing. And because cortisol is also stealing your progesterone, that leads to estrogen dominance, again, can lead to bloating. But also those two hormones, estrogen and cortisol, will contribute to more fat accumulation, especially around belly area. So for example, if the bloating you experience is not because of lack of good bacteria, but for example IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut, poor vagus nerve function, and stress, that was big factor in my case, or hormone imbalances I mentioned, then taking probiotic supplements may not help or make things worse, as that was in my case. So after a year of trying and just getting more frustrated, I decided to do the gut test. It was pricey, it was quite of the investment, but when I look back, I wish actually I did it sooner. Not only because of the amount of money I spent on unnecessary supplements, but mostly because it didn't help me and just makes things worse. But anyway, what the gut test showed was overgrowth of methane-producing bacteria, which was not surprised with when having SIBO, parasite, low digestive enzymes, and also pretty much non-existence low bifidobacteria, which brings me to the second side effect of taking probiotics, or the wrong probiotic supplements, which is lactobacillus species overpopulation in your gut. Also, if you're tired of trying things and not seeing results, you can book a session with me where I can help you choose the right approach and the right test if needed. So no guessing, you just get literally what you need and the results you need. But anyway, back to lactobacilli overpopulation. When you look at most of the probiotics brand, a lot of them contains lactobacillus strain as a dominant strain in the probiotic blend. If your body is lacking them, nothing wrong with that. But as it was in my case, I was lacking actually bifidobacteria. And what happens? Lactobacillus strains easily colonize your gut, and that can inhibit the growth of other good bacteria like bifidobacteria, which are super protective to viral viruses, parasites, or like other gut pathogens, and overall like reduce your microbiome diversity. So overall, I'm not a big advocate of supplementing probiotics if you don't know really what's going on in your gut, unless you choose strains that are fairly safe, like soil-based probiotic, because they don't colonize your gut, so less potential risk and side effects. Then the next negative effect of taking the wrong strains or wrong probiotics is basically histamine release, histamine overload. So it's not so common, but can cause quite a lot of issues. So here are the strains of bacteria that are known to release the histamine. I'm not gonna read them because I'm sure I'm not gonna get the pronunciation right. But as I said, they can increase histamine. And if you have too much of histamine in your system, that can increase estrogen. And as I mentioned before, leads to bloating, belly fat. But also more histamine means more inflammation. And that can lead to not only like food sensitivities or any sort of like kind of allergic reaction, skin rashes, itchiness, itchy eyes as well. I remember when I was eating a lot of coconut yogurt, which contained that particular strain of bacteria, I actually developed some weird itchiness here on the top of my scalp, which again, that time I had no idea where this is coming from, but now with more understanding, it makes basically sense. So overall, like the impact or like reaction of histamine will depend on each person, but mostly it comes down to your histamine from like diet. Fermented foods is one of the common, I would say, source of histamine. So again, all the good probiotics rich foods contain naturally histamine, which is like nothing wrong with that. But for example, if your body don't produce enough of the DAO enzyme, which breaks down the histamine, or you, for example, consume a lot of alcohol, painkillers, sometimes even curcumin. There is some research showing curcumin can be questionable if it comes to like the histamine, or basically your nervous system is dysregulated, which pretty much comes down to how stressed you are as well. That all will have impact on the histamine breakdown and the effect of it. And when you're, for example, under a lot of stress, that can seriously dysregulate your nervous system and make your body prone to release that histamine. Not even probiotic related, but overall because of the impact of stress cortisol on your immune system. And speaking of immune system, that leads me to the next, I would say, negative effect of supplementing probiotics or like the wrong probiotics. It can make autoimmune conditions worse. So here I want to make super clear, probiotics itself will not trigger autoimmune conditions, but when you have autoimmune conditions, then taking care of your gut is like super important because most of your immune system is in your gut. And there are certain strains of probiotics which that can overstimulate Th17 cells, which then create more inflammation. And then the last one is basically your gut microbiome diversity. So in other words, diverse gut microbiome means more metabolic flexibility, which means healthy hunger and satiety signaling, healthy metabolism, keeping inflammation and also bad bacteria that can cause that inflammation in check, and also healthy weight, healthy body fat. So if it comes to supplementing probiotics, the impact on your gut diversity will of course depend on what kind of probiotics you take, how much and for how long. But overall, your gut doesn't like repetition, but what it loves is like diversity. So that's something you definitely want to keep in mind. And as I mentioned earlier, doing gut tests is one of the best ways really to see actually what's going on in your gut, what is your digestion, gut inflammation, if you have any bad bacteria, if you are lacking good bacteria, because I would say that's where you may consider supplementing probiotics, but definitely you don't want to supplement probiotics when you have enough of the good bacteria. And for example, the bloating can be from leaky gut, irritable bowel syndrome I mentioned earlier, poor estrogen clearance, or like few other factors that it's hard to say just from the symptoms. It's of course an investment, but when I look back, it's so worth it and also saves you time on like guessing and trying. Alternatively, if you don't want to go with the test route, what can be helpful and fairly safe is trying low FODMAP diet. A lot of people see improvement with bloating, minimum 12 hours overnight fast because that helps to cleanse the gut. Focusing on improving your like digestion and gut motility, so apple cider vinegar vinegar or like ginger as well. Reducing stress, honestly, big factor that can massively disrupt your gut and hormones as well. So that's something I would definitely not ignore, and that was also a big factor in my case. And then if it comes to probiotics, soil-based probiotics are one of the safest if you want to go with supplements. And one more thing I forgot to mention, make sure your thyroid is at the optimal level. On my website, you can see optimal ranges according to functional medicine, because if your thyroid is suboptimal, gut issue will keep coming back, most likely, of course. And that's something that was like a big changer in my case. When I fixed my thyroid, it was so much easier to sort out my gut and also balance hormones, get rid of the belly fat as well. So that's something you definitely don't want to ignore. And if you want to learn more how to lose belly fat with hormone imbalances, watch this video next.